able to turn into this role as a judge where you're now in like a collaborative effort with everyone. And I feel that way almost like competing against some of the guys that taught me or groups that I got cut from, like the cadets or now Colin is at Boston. But I wanted to be in a Colin McNutt drumline so bad. I love Colin's writing and I think he is like the most intense dude ever. And I just like love like his whole like thing is just so off the wall, just high energy. And now competing against those groups, it's like, it feels like almost this, like it is almost like a family. We're competing and we're all like, it's a dogfight and we're all so like, there's a lot of emotion to it, which I'm sure you've experienced as a judge, but it's almost like, like I remember, Colin knows me from when I was 16 going to the cadets back then. And now you are, let's say, judging the Crossmen, where you were in Centerville High School with Andrew Markworth, and he's been at the Crossmen writing for their, starting the Pitt book back in '08, now writing the full score. And it's just like, what a perfect, like, just like, it's not even the end, because I feel like you are now on a meteoric rise as a judge. And I can only speak to my experience, with DCI, like as an instructor and in this process, but you're one of those, like, I don't think like young or new in a way that is stigmatized or bad, but that next generation, you, Mike Lightsky, are some of the younger people that we see consistently on the panel. And it gives me a ton of hope and listening to stories like, hey, we can do this. Like people can do this. And like, people have the experience and we all have a say in the direction of the activity. That's what's amazing is now as a judge getting to collaborate, you're almost a consultant with every single group. It's like, you might not be the one on the ground, like with the snare line in the heat anymore, but you're definitely going to affect what those groups do the next day or that next week, getting this valuable feedback. And I've always just loved, interacting with you, with Mike, with all of the judges, just the excitement for what's happening. It's like you guys just like, tell me what's going on. It's not like here's what, here's my list. Check, this is what you need to fix. It's like, explain to me what that was, because like at DCI, it's almost like it's moving so fast. What has it felt like, going from, member and instructor, but now seeing like the rapid growth, like how do you keep up, and what do you feel like is your job within that, like that momentum that's going on?
Well, first of all, I think it's astounding what the members are doing today on the field. Every time I see a drum corps, I'm impressed, and I just think, man, they are so good. Like everybody is so good. And so when I'm out there, I really look at it as my role is to try to identify as much of what the group is doing as I possibly can. So I'm trying to pinpoint skill sets, different techniques that are being used, different orchestrational and compositional techniques that are in the book. And I'm just trying to take in as much of that as I can. Something that I really enjoy about being a judge is that I'm really looking to build on what each group is doing. It doesn't matter who it is, what level the group is at competitively. When I'm out there, I'm looking for the good. I'm looking to find the things that the group is doing well.
Yes.
And oftentimes, it's like mostly really good. Like, because there's so many excellent staff, and instructors out there, guys like Elf and others. It brings so much quality, brings such a quality educational experience to the members that oftentimes And so my job is just to maybe pick out some of the things that maybe just due to repetitiveness or just being, in the forest, so to speak, you just don't maybe see on a day-to-day.
Yeah.
Or my job, as you get more competitive, and like my job is to kind of be critical of things and challenge the designers and the staff to say, well, hey, I know what you're trying to do. Is there a way we can execute it at a higher level? Can you do more with that? Is that what you want to do? Is that the final moment? And oftentimes, you get that interaction with the staff, and they're able to kind of explain their point of view on it or what you're working towards. And so it really is. It feels like a collaborative effort. It's definitely not, as you know, from my point of view, it never feels like I'm out there to count ticks or I'm out there to just call people out. I'm excited for the members. Like, I get goosebumps being out there because it's almost like I get to sort of live vicariously through them. I'm sort of an organic part of that performance experience, but in a way that's meant to just help and encourage. I think judges, ultimately the judging team, they're the biggest fans of drum corps out there. That's why we do it, because we love it so much that we want to see each group reach its fullest potential, whatever that means competitively. Groups at all levels. I mean, there were some corps last summer that that didn't advance into the next round. Les Stentors from Canada, and I saw them in a couple shows, and they had some moments in their program that were just astounding. French horn soloists and keyboard players, and then all the way to the champions. Getting to be on the field with a group like the Blue Devils. And every group in between. Everybody brings something really special to the table. This sort of electric energy. And so, for me, as a judge, it's preparation is key. I mean, we start preparing like normally right now. I mean, it's middle of June, so I almost forgot for a second that like the season's not happening. Dang.
I know,
but hey, that's the reality,
Yeah.
And so, but preparation. It's all about knowing what each group is trying to do. So at the start of the year, every group is able to present sort of a spiel sheet to the judges with just a little bit of information about what the show is, little program notes, and then oftentimes there's like a Spotify playlist as well where you can check out the group's source material. So I'll spend like days, man. I'll just like go into my office and I'm listening to music. I'm taking notes. I know each group's program, even though I'm judging percussion. I want to know what it is that the group's playing, what their source material is, and what the program is. And so I think the more I understand about what the staff is trying to do, the more I understand. And so that's gonna help influence my perception of the groups. And I do that before every show. Depending on what the lineup is, I'm going to go back and I'm going to check my notes. And I just want to make sure that that I'm prepared there. And then if it's a group I've seen, I'll keep notes and listen to each one of my files. Oftentimes I'll walk my dogs and I'll just put my phone on and just like listen to my files just on repeat. Not because I like hearing myself talk, but mainly so I can identify, I'm working on myself at that point. I'm judging, I'm being my own critic. I'm saying, man, I just keep going back to that. I got stuck over here talking about the Glockenspiel or something, or whatever it is,
Right.
Man, I haven't noticed the bass drums in like a long time, and you pick up little trends or, because every time that you see a group, you want to give them something fresh. You don't want to say the same things. So I'm just always challenging myself in that way to experience as much of the program as I possibly can and really take in all of the little details. And this is where my job with the Old Guard, I think, is so influential. And because I play a snare drum. I still play every day.
Yeah.
And so I understand some of the challenges that go into putting a drum line together, putting an ensemble together. And so that is still fresh in my mind when I take the field. And then my experience over the years with the teaching and being a snare tech and running around in front of the battery or being the guy in the box and like understanding that there's an ensemble moment here that's tricky, but like, man, the snares are over on the 10-yard line and they're here. And, and just knowing all those challenges to putting all that stuff together. So it all kind of influences my perspective as an adjudicator. So.
Right. I think something very very interesting to your experience and what you've done in your career is the extreme diversity of the people that you've worked with, and there are clear lineages through many of them. Lee and Colin kind of come from a maybe secondary school of thought, but certainly a similar school of thought in some ways. And then you have Mike McIntosh, who is kind of, I think he's kind of carved out his own path in sort of a Midwest tradition, if you will. That's kind of how I felt marching with the Cavaliers, and sort of a hybrid approach, maybe taking things from these different schools before him, and Tim Maynard and Ray Uleberry, all the people that you had instructing you, and then not only that you marched all these groups and gained this like wide variety of education from different leaders and activity, but then in this kind of a radical shift, you're like, I'm going to become like a traditional Fife drummer essentially, and you're talking about kind of building your chops and really digging into the metronome and getting your precision going, but then maybe realizing that isn't. The chops I think are unbelievable, because when you're playing on a calfskin head, the sensitivity and the strength you need to have and the range of dynamics that those drums can produce it's unreal. The tone, and it's very, very specific, but the feel of that music it's different. The way things open up and close, the way that hand speeds motivate a sort of dynamic approach to tempo and to rhythm, it opens your mind up to this idea that's like, well, drum corps and like the training that I believe I've received up to a certain point, they're actually all similar in a certain way in their approach to maybe being very specific with the Met. We're hammering the Met, we're hammering tempo, and the way the drums sound, the way that the music is written. And then all of a sudden, it's like you think it's not as radical of a shift because it's like, oh, we're doing marching percussion, but what is being played and what's expected in a Fife corps is like it is that radically different. So do you feel like this has been a major contributor to like your judging and to this approach of like, I need to like open and keep opening up because I think you kind of forced yourself in a way to sort of, you turned into this, I think, a very different direction, because a lot of people in that world, in the Fife world, they start doing that when they're like the age that you were getting into DCI drum corps. So it's a little bit like different in terms of your path, that you went down that road a little bit like later after you had already marched a ton of world-class groups.
Yeah, I think you spend so much time with the modern scene where you're working to be very precise, very sharp, and you're trying to stay on this linear path with the time. But I think, as you know, putting a top level ensemble together, oftentimes there is a lot of breath and there's a lot of push and pull, and there's some spots in the show where you're probably like, we're going to turn the Met off here, and that's okay, because ultimately it's not about playing with the Met, it's about how are we playing as an ensemble. And so
right.
I think the very traditional side is definitely there. I've had to sort of embrace that organic flow and that push and that pull of the music, and really kind of sit in that and be comfortable with it. And it was not comfortable for me. And sometimes it still is not comfortable for me, that stretch, and that pull and that breath. But ultimately we stay together. So there's something that's happening when we're playing as an ensemble where even though we're not playing to the Met, and this does slow down here, this does speed up here, ultimately we stay together. So I've tried to sort of pinpoint that or capture some of that magic, like in a jar, and just like store it away. Like, how are we doing that? Like, what's going on there? And I think you see a lot of that in the drum corps world, in DCI. I think that's something that when you're out there, when I'm out there as a judge, and when you're out there as a performer, you can feel that energy. And I think that energy is sort of what brings drum corps, or what brings any musical performance to life. It's that magic of there's some type of nonverbal communication happening.
Yes.
There's some musical communication, and there's no words said about it. But when you're out in it as a judge or performer, and when it's working right, the audience feels that too. And so that's, when you go and see a drum corps show in person, any great ensemble, an orchestra, or you come see the Old Guard Fife Drum Corps, if you see us and it's clicking, it's working, you can feel that. And that's like part of the human experience. That's like, to me, that's like the magic that you're chasing.